Jason, can you make sure everyone is muted? Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome. It's really great to see a huge screen full of people. And this was supposed to happen live and in person this time last year, but unfortunately it's one of the first events of many now that have been canceled or rescheduled due to COVID. I'm Sid Waldman. I am a funeral director licensed in the state of Texas, and I am the owner of Waldman Funeral Care. I'd like to thank our co-sponsor, Congregation Emmanuel, and Jason Plotkin, its program director. Rabbi Oren Hayon, its senior rabbi, for their continued support for this project. I've known Gail Rubin for 8 or so years, and she has a motto on the back of her business card: talking about sex won't make you pregnant. Talking about funerals won't make you dead. She's been talking about end-of-life issues for the past 11 years. And so far, she says, so good. Gail Rubin is a certified paleontologist. That's a death educator who's knocked them dead with her TEDx Albuquerque talk, A Good Goodbye. She pioneered the Death Cafe movement in the United States and was one of the first people to coordinate Before I Die festivals in the US. And this is a weekend of Before I Die Houston. She's the author of 3 books on end-of-life issues: A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die, Hail and Farewell, Cremation Ceremonies, Templates and Tips, and Kicking the Bucket, Downsizing, Organizing Things to Do Before You Die. She's also a member of her Chevra Kadisha in Albuquerque and on the cemetery committee for Congregation Albert, a Reformed congregation there. So let's all welcome Gail Rubin.
Thank you, Sid. It is so wonderful to be here with you tonight and see all of your smiling faces on my gallery view here on Zoom. So because you're all up on the screen, I can see you raise your hands. So tell me, do you feel like you have too much stuff around your house? Hey, do you think your partner has too much stuff around the house? Who here does not plan to die? Yeah, we always get a few of those. You know, I have some news. Despite great advances in medical care, humans do still have a 100% mortality rate. And when we die, somebody is going to have to deal with our stuff. And very often, we don't want to talk about death, our own death, or anybody else's death, but we are more inclined to talk about our stuff. So talking about downsizing is a great way to lead into talking about end-of-life issues. Now, just a little bit about me. I'm all about getting the conversation started about talking about planning ahead for end-of-life issues. And my title is The Doyenne of Death. And a doyenne is a woman who's considered senior in a group who knows a lot about a particular subject. But I was not always the doyenne of death. I actually come from a background as an event planner and a PR professional. And I got married for the second time in 2000. We had a very creative Jewish Western wedding. Everybody had such a good time. I wanted to write a book about creative life cycle events and call it Matchings, Hatchings, and Dispatchings, about weddings and births and deaths. And I got to write a monthly feature in our local newspaper here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, by that title. And it was the stories about death and funerals that got the most reader response. Well, there are already plenty of books about creative wedding planning. We didn't need another take on that, but there wasn't much about creative funeral planning. So I focused on funerals, and a good goodbye funeral planning for those who don't plan to die was the result. And that changed the course of my career. I did become certified in thanatology, which is a fancy name for a death educator. Death, not deaf. I get that a lot. And then I've done TV programs where we talk about planning ahead. I have a lot of YouTube videos out there, which you're welcome to check out. And I became a certified funeral celebrant. And as Sid mentioned, I've been on the cemetery committee for our Reformed congregation here in Albuquerque, Congregation Albert, for at least 10 years. And now I am president of a historic cemetery that's right next to it. So I'm just up to my neck in death and cemeteries and funerals, and we're having a great time with it. So my book, Kicking the Bucket List, I was actually approached by the local publisher, Rio Grande Books, to put together a book that has lots of photos and some good information and 100 things to do before you die. And it became Kicking the Bucket List. And it provides a great framework for us to talk about downsizing, which is what we'll do initially, and then talking about what you need to know about planning ahead for end-of-life issues. And I promise you, we will make it fun. If you do have questions while we're going along, feel free to type your question in the chat box. I do have that window open, so I'll keep an eye out for questions, and I will respond as soon as I see them. Now, I'm also going to be sharing with you some of my personal experiences that I have been having since January with my parents. My parents are Sheldon and Ruth Rubin. Dad goes by Shelley. Mom's 91, dad is 90. They have been splitting their time between Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Florida, Delray Beach, Florida. And they got stuck in Florida for the pandemic. And then their health started to decline. My younger brother, Lee, lives with my folks, or lived until it got to be just too much for him to handle in terms of their deterioration, unfortunately. They're both still alive, and they're now in a lovely assisted living place. We've just completed a 3-day estate sale. Tip, work with professionals. Don't try and do this yourself. But I do have some stories about preparing for the estate sale, as well as some of the end-of-life issue planning topics that will tie in with my personal experience with my parents. So let us go to my PowerPoint. So this is, as I mentioned, a good goodbye funeral planning for those who don't plan to die, and Kicking the Bucket List. So we're just going to hit some of the highlights from Kicking the Bucket List as we go along. So we're going to go from 100 to 1. And number 100, release your attachments. This is an image of the Buddha. And the Buddha was, of course, a religious figure that lets us know that holding on to things becomes baggage. When we hold on to emotions or hold on to relationships that don't work for us, or hold on to objects, they can become baggage that weighs us down. We need to free ourselves to focus on the present moment, because the present moment is really all any of us have. The past is history, the future's a mystery, but today is a gift, and that's why it's called the present. So releasing your attachments is step number one to helping downsize our clutter. And if we have clutter in our lives, it's stressful. So you want to clear your clutter to clear your mind. Visual clutter is an overload that burdens your peace of mind. So you want to clear things out so that, have any of you heard of feng shui? It's the Chinese art and science of placement. And you want to allow the energy to flow through your home and your office, and clutter blocks the flow of good energy. So what you want to do is clear out the clutter so that you can have a clear mind. So just some of the benefits of downsizing just for your general health. Now, just looking at this drawer in my office is probably stress-inducing. I know it's stress-inducing for me, but this is what my drawer with the batteries and the extension cords and the owner's manuals for all of the equipment that I've ever purchased kind of wound up. And I did wind up cleaning out this drawer. However, it is not one and done. Your life is like a river, and objects will come like silt in a river and get deposited. So you have to be on top of cleaning things out. Now, this is titled Decide Your Approach because there are many different ways that one can tackle the job of downsizing and getting rid of junk without being overwhelmed. My approach is what I call Gail Rubin's dump a drawer technique, where you can take a drawer out of a desk, out of the kitchen, and just dump everything in a box and pick out what you absolutely use, need, love. We'll get to that in our next slide. You may have heard about the KonMari method. Marie Kondo, a Japanese lady who has swept Netflix with her TV program about downsizing. She uses a approach that's by categories. So you take all of your clothes out of closets and drawers and you put them in a big pile and you pick up every item one at a time and say, do I love this? Does this spark joy? Is her mantra. So you start with the clothes, then you go to the books, then you go to papers and knickknacks, and then the most sentimental of all, of course, the photographs. An interesting thing happens as you go through these different categories. You become better at saying, this does not serve me. This is not anything I need to keep in my life. So that's another approach. And then, of course, there's the nuclear option, the estate sale, which we've just done for my parents. And holy cow, the woman who ran the estate sale, she got just about everything sold. And what's left is going to be out of the house by this weekend. So you don't have to be dead to have an estate sale. I happened to stumble across an estate sale here in Albuquerque where the couple had decided they were moving to Texas, and they just packed a suitcase of whatever clothes they still wore and just left the house to have everything sold. And you know, what a way to lighten up and liberate yourself. Now, something very interesting happened while I was preparing for the estate sale, because you cannot have your personal papers or personal photographs, any memorabilia that you want to hold on to that's family or personal related, you want to clear out of the house before you have an estate sale. So I'm in my dad's office, and my parents bought this house in Albuquerque in 2007, and moved out here then. Well, I found this list of, as you go through your stuff in preparation for the move, ask yourself. So these are the 10 things that you can ask yourself about any item in your life. Do I use it? Do I need it? Does it bring joy to my life? That's Marie Kondo's spark joy idea. Is it broken, damaged, or inoperable? Why would you want to hold on to that? If lost in a fire, would I replace it? But then it gets more woo-woo. Would I want to manifest it 100 times? What image and energy is this sending to the universe for me? Does it bring in past energies with negative emotions or thoughts or memories attached to it? If I was called to move this 5 times in a year, would I want to pack and move it? And then lastly, would this be a pleasure or use to my heirs? So these are great questions. And I just had a laugh when I found this list of questions, because my mom and dad still pack up stuff that I found in closets that had not been opened since 2007 when they moved in. So let's talk about some adventures in downsizing. That is a picture of me with a fancy sombrero that I picked up at a yard sale in Washington, D.C., probably back in the 1980s. It's a fancy sombrero, and it hung on my wall for these many years. And then when I was writing, kicking the bucket list, I realized, you know what? I'm never going to wear this hat. It's just collecting dust. I need to do something with this and pass it along. So I am in a restaurant called El Sarape. It's a wonderful Mexican restaurant here in Albuquerque that decorates with, look, serapes and fancy sombreros. So when I had gone there and I saw how they had decorated the restaurant, I said, next time I come here, I'm going to bring this sombrero and give it to them. And so I came in with the sombrero. I said, I'd like to give you the sombrero to decorate the restaurant. They said, oh, thank you very much. And they gave me a free flan for dessert. How cool is that? So you want to find new homes for objects that would be places that people would appreciate whatever it is you'd like to get out of your house. I had a lava lamp that I had picked up at a silent auction. And, I decided, okay, I've had enough with the lava lamp. Happened to go to an open house at my neighbor's across the street. I'd never been in their house before. And one whole room had lava lamps all over the place. And I was like, I have a lava lamp for you. And I gave it to them. And so passing things along to people who can appreciate it or collect it, that's one easy way to start letting go of stuff. So of course, having a sale is very emotionally stressful, a garage sale. I am so glad I was banned from being at the house for the estate sale, because we are still emotionally attached to objects that we have decided we're going to let go anyway. So yeah, yard sales, garage sales, flea markets, if you're selling yourself, can be very emotionally hard. It's hard work. You may or may not make much money for those items. Craigslist or classified ads is a great way of listing bigger ticket items. One thing, my husband's parents downsized and moved into a independent living place. They had a lovely natural gas grill that you have to plug into a natural gas line to work. And we had that sitting on our back patio for about 1.5 years when I realized, if we're going to use this, we're going to have to run a natural gas line out to the backyard. And we already had a perfectly fine propane gas grill. And so it was like, let's sell this. And I also had a rooftop car carrier that I wasn't going anywhere using that after a number of years of it just sitting in the garage. So we sold that on Craigslist as well. Between those two items, we made $750. So there can be some big money to be had in selling some of your items around the house. So donating is a really great way to go. You can get a tax break when you donate to a qualified charity like Goodwill, or here in Albuquerque, St. Vincent de Paul is very big. But you can also donate specifically for different causes. You may or may not know that towels and blankets are welcomed by the Humane Society for bedding for pets. So if it's not in really great shape, it still has a use. If you have tools or supplies, paint, lumber, even working appliances, the Restore for Habitat for Humanity would love to get that stuff from you. Think about theaters. They need furniture and household goods and clothing for props and costumes. So that's another place you can donate. If you have a lot of books, sometimes libraries will collect books and sell them as a fundraiser for the library system. Many different ways that you can go to let go of stuff. And even, I got to tell you, I had a load of items that I was taking to Goodwill. And Goodwill can be kind of picky. One of the things that I had in my car were these foam camping pads. And they said, oh, we can't take that. It's a mattress. And I was like, a mattress? So I kept those. And what I did was I just put them out on the sidewalk with a free sign, and they disappeared like that. So there are different ways that you can let things go. I talk about a whole host of other options in the Kicking the Bucket List book, including there's freecycle.org if you wanted to just donate, say, take it off my hands for free. It makes it easier to do that. I have a video that I would like to share with you to also set the tone a little more about some of the issues that we face when we're talking about planning for end of life and downsizing. On CBS, there was a series called Mike and Molly, which aired from 2010 to 2016. And Mike and Molly are a couple that at this point in the series are living in Molly's mother's house, along with her sister, Victoria. And Molly and Victoria and Mom will go to a weekly yoga class. And at the very beginning of this episode, it turns out they come back from yoga early because the yoga instructor died while she was teaching the class. So this is prompting a mom to assess her end of life plans and downsizing to make sure her daughters get what they want of her things. So let's watch this clip.
Boy, I just can't get over what happened yesterday.
Neither can I.
And the more I think about it, the more I have to wonder. Shouldn't that yoga studio give us a refund for that class?
Victoria, the woman just died.
So I should call in a few days.
Well, that's what I'm doing. Hey, how'd you sleep?
I didn't. Here.
Stickers?
Yeah, you each have your own color. I want you both to go through the house and mark anything you want after I die.
What?
Look, it's the best way to divide my stuff up. And that way you can kick back, relax, and enjoy the funeral I planned. There's going to be a calypso band.
Okay, we're not doing this.
Why not?
Because no one is dying. You're perfectly healthy, Mom.
Yeah, so was Kara. And she went downward facing dead right in front of us.
8 minutes into a $30 class.
Come on, it'll be a fun game. I'll set the timer for 20 minutes, and you each get one steal.
No! Victoria and I are not picking through your things like a couple of vultures.
Our earrings, 1 sticker or 2?
2. They should be 2. Hey, who's banging around down here?
Hey!
You finally making that still you've been threatening to build?
Now I'm trying to get into this damn thing.
Well, don't you have a key?
Yeah, I just thought it'd be more fun to spend 20 minutes trying to open it with a freaking hammer.
All right, don't sass me. Give me the hammer. What's in here anyway?
Who can remember? Old savings bonds, insurance policy. It's just one stupid piece in the jigsaw puzzle that is my life.
Well, you don't have to sort through all this stuff now.
Yes, I do. You have no idea how hard things are going to be when I'm gone.
I gotta be honest, things aren't that easy when you're here.
I was completely blindsided when your father died. God, I had to plan a funeral, figure out bank accounts, bills, all while bawling my eyes out. I don't want you girls to have to go through all that.
Okay. So it's decided you'll live forever.
I'll see what I can do.
All right. Let's crack this clam open. See what kind of legacy you're leaving us. Oh, hey! Oh, Polaroids! Oh.
Boy, your father sure knew how to frame a shot.
So lesson number 1, get rid of the embarrassing items now while you still can. I do have to admit, going through my dad's papers in his office, I found some emailed pictures of naked ladies. You know, when you don't know when you're coming back, you could get caught with incriminating evidence. So, but you also saw how Mom was stressed about when her first husband died. She had to plan a funeral. She had to figure out insurance and papers and bank accounts. It can be very stressful if you don't have your affairs in order. And even if you do have your affairs in order, it can still be stressful, but at least you know you've got a framework to work with. So let's still focus on downsizing and talking about your stuff. I love this picture because it's kind of a mystery. We have a woman who looks like a princess receiving gifts. The guy is kneeling with a giant egg in his hand, and then there's a person holding a potted flowering plant and a live ram on a leash behind that, and then a woman holding a tableau with letters on it. If you do not know the story of the stuff in your life, those items are just as mysterious as why these people are bringing this woman these different gifts. So you want to talk about the stories behind those items that you find precious, that you want to hold on to. You know, if you're holding on to it, surely there must be a story. So you want to talk about that story with the people who would be handling your estate. Another way to help tell the story of your objects is to label them. One of the things that I rescued from the house is this lovely mortar and pestle. And inside of it is a piece of paper that my mother had written that this is over 150 years old. And it came from my mother's side of the family from Poland. So at least I have some of the story of this. I mean, I love mortar and pestles anyway, but now I know more about that and the family connection to it. You can label something with a sticker, like they did at the beginning of the Mike and Molly episode, or actually writing something out and tucking it on, taping to the back of a picture or whatever. It's important to label because, if you paid hundreds or thousands of dollars for something and nobody knows the value of it, it might go in a yard sale for a mere pittance, and then it winds up on Antiques Roadshow, and people are like, oh my God. So label, tell the story, name names as to who had it and who wants it or who should get it. If something is significant, you want people to know it, its age, besides its cost, if there is some family connection, and also write down the names for scrapbooks and photos. I thought I would always remember my first boyfriend who I have in a photo album, and I'm looking at him and I was like, I cannot remember that guy's name for the life of me. So I believe there is a Chinese saying that the lightest pencil is more enduring than the mind. You're not going to remember it. All right, so label objects. Another important element of our lives these days is your online passwords. Think about this. You've got passwords for your social media, for your email, if you run websites, for your banking, for credit cards, for consuming news media. There are so many online passwords in our lives. I write mine down on a spreadsheet, and you often have to update some online passwords. They'll make you update it every 3 months or so. And how do you keep track of that? So I'm a big believer in the paper way of doing that. And that way, if I forget it, I could just pull it out and read it. And my executor could do that as well. Now, there are other electronic ways, having a master password with an online site that can help you manage your passwords, like LastPass, if you trust it to never be hacked. So there are those issues as well, but we have so much of our lives online these days. If you fell off the face of the planet and nobody knew your passwords, your family would be in a heap of trouble. So make some kind of collection of your passwords, keep track of them somehow. If you want to let everybody know in the chat, what your preferred method is, or if you have a method. So let's move on to some of the end of life issue related things. There's another scene from Mike and Molly, the same episode that I want to show you, where Victoria and Molly and Mom are about to go into an attorney's office to deal with the will and power of attorney issues. So let's watch this scene.
Boy, it feels weird being in a lawyer's office without a bottle of clean urine in my purse.
Yeah, if you're gonna keep those in the fridge, could you please label them?
Just so you know, once we finish with the will, there's just a few loose ends we got to tie up. Power of attorney, end of life issues. Mainly, which one of you is going to pull the plug?
Mom, neither one of us is gonna pull the
I'll do
plug.
it.
Victoria. Nobody is going to pull the plug. She's our mother, not your curling iron.
I guess just working with a dead makes me more comfortable with, getting him there.
Mama's a little Kevorkian.
So that's settled. You'll kill Mom.
But we should come up with a safe word so I know when to do it.
If I'm saying words, don't do it. And Molly, before we go in there's something I want you to have, and I don't want an argument.
I told you I didn't want to do this when you... Oh, Grandma's ring.
You two always had a special bond, and I know she'd want you to have it.
Oh, I don't know what to say.
Just say you'll keep it.
Of course, forever. Thank you.
Oh, and Victoria, you're getting the house.
Okay.
What?
So the wisdom of splitting up your assets that way, well, causes more comedy in that particular episode. But let's talk about what they were talking about, which was pulling the plug, your medical wishes. There are a couple of ways to express your wishes, including the 5 wishes form. By the way, April 16th is Healthcare Decisions Day. It's right after Tax Day, well, which has now been moved to May 15th, but death and taxes. And the idea that we could spell out what we want. Do we want to be kept alive as long as possible? You know, if we went immediately from healthy to dead, we wouldn't need documentation that would say, yeah, keep me alive as long as possible using medical interventions, you know, tube feeding. Do you really want that kind of intervention? Now, if you're younger, maybe, yeah. As you get older, maybe, let me go in peace. One of the 5 wishes answers 5 questions. Do you want to be kept alive as long as humanly possible? Who do you want to speak on your behalf? And then the other 3 wishes are regard to how you want to be treated as you're dying, basically. And one of the, basically with this form is they make all these great statements and you cross out anything you don't agree with, and you can certainly write in anything that you want to specify. One of the wishes is, I wish to be massaged with warm oils as often as possible. Don't wait until you're dying to get a good massage. So think about using the 5 wishes form to help spell out what you might want. Now, if you're doing planning with an attorney, there are healthcare power of attorney forms that you can fill out. Now, this would be the person you name to speak on your behalf about your medical wishes, should you not be able to speak, if you're in a coma or if you're on a ventilator, God forbid. So this is the person who is going to negotiate with the medical system on your behalf. So you want it to be somebody who is in your corner. If you have done a medical power of attorney and now that person you named is your ex-spouse, you might not want your ex-spouse making decisions for you in the hospital. And even naming a spouse could be tricky because they have a vested interest in keeping you alive. We ran into this with my father-in-law, who he was 82 when he fell and broke his hip, and that became a 7-week downhill slide, as often happens with the elderly and broken hips. And on his 3rd ER admission, they said, we can't fix this. He was having trouble breathing. And they said, we could admit him on palliative care and make him comfortable. But that meant he was probably going to die. And my mother-in-law was his named healthcare power of attorney, and she did not want to make that decision. My husband and his wife, the doyen of death, was the second decision maker. And we said, palliative care is a really good thing. We should do that. And so we did. And he was comfortable and well taken care of, and he died within a week. But it was a beautiful death. And because we had his paperwork that indicated no heroic measures, we knew we were making the right decision. So that's why you want to have a healthcare power of attorney. You also want to have financial power of attorney. Now, this is a person that you put in charge of taking care of your finances should you not be able to take care of them yourself. For example, there's a friend of mine, Beth, who came from Iowa, and her father was a farmer, big corn and pig and soybean country. Well, he got a brain bleed that put him in the intensive care unit of the hospital. He was awake, but he was unable to communicate with the outside world. And he was telling his daughters, sell the corn. The price of corn is really high right now. But because he had not done a financial power of attorney and named somebody like one of his daughters who could sell the corn on his behalf, it didn't get done. On the other hand, I have another friend who got pneumonia, elderly gentleman, and his bills were piling up while he was in the hospital and then in a rehab facility. But because he had made arrangements, he was able to have a woman write checks for him and take care of paying his bills. So that's why you need a financial power of attorney. Now, this goes away when you die. And this is where we need to make sure we've identified an executor. This is somebody who is your personal representative, somebody who is a fiduciary who will handle your affairs and settling them. I love this picture of the little kid in the big chair because very often people will choose one of their children to be their executor, but they may not have the skills it takes to actually effectively be an executor, because you've got to be organized, you got to pay bills, you have to file a final tax return for the deceased, you're handling investments and insurance and maybe home sales. So it's a lot to ask of one of your children, especially if they're not skilled in this area. Now, and in my case, I don't have any children. So what's going to happen for me? Well, you can talk to a trust company. Many banks have divisions that work as the executor, the trustee, to carry out your wishes after you're dead. And they will take either an hourly fee or perhaps a percentage of the value of the estate. But if you're not passing on your money to any heirs, who cares? Well, but you do want somebody who's going to do a good job for you. So that's what we did. We set up a trust, which includes a will. And in fact, we need to talk about wills next. So a valid will is a document that you have to be over the age of 18 and of sound mind to create a will. You use that document to dictate the dispersal of your property. And that can be real estate, bank accounts, insurance policies. If you do not have a will, whatever state you're in has various lines of succession to inherit your property and your goods. And it has to go through probate court to do that. Now, estate attorneys, they know what they're doing. And depending on the laws of your state, I am not an attorney, but it may be that a will is all you need and dealing with probate court. In many states, a trust is a way that you can keep your assets private, out of the public eye, because probate court is public. And it's a way to pass along your assets without going to probate court. That's a whole nother level of estate planning. And I highly recommend working with a competent estate planning attorney to do that and get that done. Anybody have pets? You want to have a pet trust if you have pets. So our dogs and our cats and, oh, those tropical birds that live for 30 years. If you die before your pets do, what's going to happen to Fluffy and Fido? So a pet trust is another part of your estate planning documents where you would dictate that I want so-and-so to take my pets. And you would want to have a secondary as well as a tertiary backup for where your pets would go if you should predecease them. And it's also nice to provide some funding to help take care of your pets as part of that pet trust. Also, in our case, my husband Dave and I, we have 2 black cats that we got from the Humane Society. So if we should predecease them, they would go back to the Humane Society with a generous donation. But we've got a plan. So have a plan for your pets. Anybody know who this guy is? Type his name in the chat if you know. If you do, first person to type his name in, I will send you a copy of the DVD set of my TV interview series, A Good Goodbye. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Ah, there you go, Susan. All right. All right, all 3 of you, you guys will get the DVD set. Yes, that is Prince, the rock star who died unexpectedly of a fentanyl overdose. This man had real estate as well as his incredibly popular music that generates royalties. So royalties are income that would keep coming in even if you're dead. So you need to figure out a way, if you're an author like me, you know, I still get royalties every month from books, from music, from oil and gas leases. I bet some people in Houston might have some of those. So you want to figure out what will happen to that income that keeps coming in after you're not around to benefit from it. Anybody know who this guy is? Well, everybody knows that's Albert Einstein. And you can bet Albert Einstein didn't have to write his own obituary. People who are famous and notable will have news obituaries written about them. But most of us mere mortals will need to pay to have the classified ads of death, the obituaries, list the information about you and your life. Now, there are ways to, and in fact, a friend of mine, his mother just died like earlier this week, and he was tasked with writing an obituary, something quick. And when you're put in that position, it's not very fair for the person who has to write that, because there are so many aspects of your life that people should know about. And when put on the spot, that is not the time to be writing an obituary. There's so much more to us. You're doing your loved ones a great favor if you write your own 500-word or less life story. And there are lots of prompts that you can use to help tell that story in a colorful way. And I'm happy to share a document with you all if you want to share your names and emails with me in the chat. And then after the presentation, after Shabbat, I will send you those documents. Shop before you drop. Just like writing an obituary under pressure is no fun, trying to shop around while you've got somebody who's in the morgue waiting to be buried is not the time to go funeral shopping. And you know, Sid can tell you it's so much better to be an informed consumer. And I recommend you start with Sid. But you know, don't just stop with Sid too. I'm a big proponent of comparison shopping, but I think Sid's your best deal. So, you know, caskets, arrangements. I don't know, Sid, maybe you can talk about this later, if, you know, with the COVID regulations, if we're back to doing Hefer Kadisha. We're not doing it here in Albuquerque at this point. So there are so many decisions that need to be made and so many aspects of making the funeral arrangements that I would say, know what you're getting into before you have to do it. Be an informed consumer. Use hospice sooner rather than later. If you or someone in your circle gets a terminal diagnosis, I mean, Houston, you know, is a big place for MD Anderson and cancer treatments. Yes, you want to, you know, live as long as you can for as well as you can. And hospice can help make that happen. Rather, there are studies that show that the people who pursue aggressive cancer treatments do not necessarily live longer than people who choose to go on hospice, because you don't have those side effects of, you know, heavy duty chemotherapy. So think about hospice as a way to make the most of your days should you be finding yourself in that situation. It's definitely worth checking into. And make your funeral plans. You know, funerals, if you're going to be buried, it's not just working with a funeral home, it's also working with a cemetery. And there are separate costs for the cemetery and the headstone and opening and closing the grave and the liner. If you're planning on cremation, and by the way, the Reform Jewish movement says cremation is okay, although it is preferable that you bury those cremated remains. That's why in our cemetery for Congregation Albert, we actually started entire cremated remains sections because so many people were making that choice. But this is the party no one wants to plan. And you don't want to leave your loved ones wondering, what would you want? You can talk about it. Like I say, talking about sex won't make you pregnant. Talking about funerals won't make you dead. So make those plans and talk about them. You also want to make a personal contact list. When I was a kid, my mom had a dog-eared personal phone book where there were the names and phone numbers of family and friends that we could go to and reference if we needed to get in touch with people. Well, what do we have now? We have our smartphones, which usually have our contact lists in them. But that, if you die and nobody knows your password to get into your phone, you know, how are you going to contact people? I have put together a system that incorporates Excel spreadsheets and Word forms called the family plot file, where you could use that to put together your master list and then print out phone lists or email lists and other documents, so you can get in touch with people. You can let somebody in your family help make phone calls when there is a funeral to be held. And talk to your family. You know, you want to talk about your medical wishes. There are tools available for free online. The Conversation Project. Write that down, go to the Conversation Project website to get some great tools for starting conversations about what your medical wishes are. You can talk about your life. Now, Have the Talk of a Lifetime is a deck of cards that the National Funeral Directors Association came up with to help conversations about important parts of your life, about your values, about, what was the best of times, what was the worst of times, and talk about your stuff. I have an executor checklist in the Kicking the Bucket List book, which will help you realize all of the things besides what's in the 100 to 1 of planning ahead. But what you as an executor, should you be put in that position, what you need to do to shut down an estate. And it is multi-processing. So give me your name and email address also, and I will send you a link to download that PDF for free as well. And I will also throw in, because I love being with you guys, and I thank Sid for having me talk to you, is the Newly Dead game. I created a game like the Newlywed game, which helps test couples on how well they know each other's last wishes. But I'll also send the individual's version of the game, so you can kind of just test yourself how well prepared you are. And number 1, enjoy your life. As we talked about at the beginning with the Buddha, and being present to enjoy your life today and every day, because all we have is this moment. And all this talk about mortality really helps us realize just how precious life is, and make the most of every day. And if you want to get in touch with me, here is my contact information. And I see, oh yay, we're getting names and emails in the chat. And question, will this program be available online, as we missed the first part? And Sid, I think you can answer that. I'm going to stop share. And I'm happy to take other questions if you want to ask me questions.
So let me answer that first, Gail. We are recording this, and in a couple of days, we'll get the recording and the link, and we'll post it on the Waldman Funeral Care website. I'm planning to have a pop-up when you first go onto the website that'll have a direct link to this program.
Okay, so here's a question about social media accounts. How do you factor those into your planning? Like Facebook. Well, Facebook actually has a legacy feature where you can name 1 or 2 people to be the person to take over your account and decide what to do with it. Make it a memorial page, take it down entirely, whatever your preferences are. But there is a way that you can name names and provide a contact. The other, things have changed so quickly. I did write about that in A Good Goodbye, but that was 10, 11 years ago, and things change quite quickly in the social media world. There is also there are other services that can work with attorneys or your estate trustee to legally take care of shutting down your social media accounts. So very important question, and something that everybody needs to think about if you're on social media. What do you do with boxes of photos? Oh my God. I am dealing with that with my parents' stuff right now. But it is so fascinating. One of those boxes that hadn't been opened since 2007 was keepsakes from my grandparents. And I found photos from the 1920s of, I'm guessing, my grandmother and her sisters frolicking on the beach at Atlantic City. And but again, I don't know who these people are, and it's not labeled. So I am going to ship off a lot of these photos to my aunt, my dad's sister, so she can identify them. But think about digitizing. Many of us have scanners, and you can put those photos on the scanner and make electronic files. And then you can safely let go of the physical photo and still have the image to pull up and share. And in some cases, you might even be able to make a digital photo album that could be easily shared with all of the family members who would be interested in it. But I'm guilty. I got a huge drawer of my own photos that I have been loath to go through. But now that I've sharpened my skills by working on my parents' stuff, I threw out, we had 3 filing cabinets of files. I found the paperwork for the first house in 1959. My dad saved real estate transactions from his entire career, but we really only needed to keep like the past 10 years. So you got to get vicious with throwing the stuff out, and actually you will feel lighter and you probably won't miss it. Do we have other questions? No. All right. Sid, would you like us to finish with the quick bits?
So I wanted just to mention a couple of things. One, help with pre-planning funerals. Yes, I am an authority on that. I can help you with that. And I welcome people shopping around as well, but I can give you some general ideas and questions to ask, maybe things you hadn't thought of. So that's one thing. And WaldmanFuneralCare.com has some planning information on it, but it also gives you my contact information, and you can send a request and I'll get back in touch with you. So this has been a great talk. Gail is a wonderful person, and she has great information. The biggest thing is don't wait. Do some of this stuff now while you can, while you're healthy, while you have family members who can A, help you, but B, listen to what you want and make sure you write down your wishes. In the state of Texas, your written instructions trump all other next of kin candidates. So this is very important to have your wishes written down. With that, Gail, roll a film.
All right.
We've all seen wearable technology that measures certain aspects of your health. Your heart rate, your blood pressure, even the number of hours you sleep. Well, what if there was a device that could answer a question about your health we never could before? Such as exactly when your hour has come. At Mount Pleasant Group, we've created an accessory that tells you precisely how much time you have left in this world. Introducing Quitbit. Quitbit uses a sophisticated algorithm to measure when your body is literally ready to quit. It intelligently takes your lifestyle habits into account when calculating your remaining days. And when your time is almost up, Quitbit will send you a notification alerting you that it is time to start planning your final goodbye. How comforting would it be to know that your loved ones will be taken care of and that you will be able to preserve your legacy? This technological breakthrough will revolutionize the way we plan an artful and beautiful farewell. Quitbit is currently in beta testing, but until it's ready, planning your funeral with Mount Pleasant Group is still the simplest way to prepare for your final goodbye. It's time to start your plan.
I'll stick around for questions. I do want to invite everyone to come on Sunday at 4 p.m. to Gail's Death Cafe. a program that she and others around the country are creating and working on and helping people talk about death and dying. Another special thank you tonight to Jason Plotkin for his techno directing skills. We really appreciate you, Jason, and all the help you've provided us in planning for this weekend. So I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Have a great night. Hope to see many of you on Sunday. And I'll stick around for questions from the chat. Thank you all very much.
Live long and prosper.